the court and be like, let's do it. Good seat. 2 days is not much time to build a team. That is what makes this stretch in Miami so important for Team USA. On paper, the roster already has star power. What it does not have yet is game rhythm together. And before the group heads to San Juan, Puerto Rico for the FIA Women's World Cup qualifying tournament beginning March 11th. That is the real job. Not headlines, not highlights. Chemistry. That part is easy to overlook when the names are this big. These players come from different teams, different systems, different habits. Even great players need time to learn each other's pace. Where the pass should arrive, when to cut, when to space, when to trust that someone will rotate behind them. In a camp this short, every drill carries more weight because there is no room for a slow build. So, Miami becomes less about spectacle and more about synchronization. The coaching staff is using these sessions to tighten offensive sets, sharpen defensive rotations, and speed up communication before the games start counting. Once the tournament begins, there will not be much time to figure things out on the fly. And inside that larger team story, one player draws a different kind of attention. For Caitlin Clark, this camp is not just a national team stop. It is her return to competitive basketball after an 8-month layoff caused by injuries that changes the way people watch everything. Not just whether she makes shots, but how she moves, how quickly she processes, how naturally she settles back into a high-level environment. That is why the early practice clips mattered. Fans were looking for signs, even in brief moments. A transition push, a clean pull-up, a sequence where she directs traffic and looks fully engaged in the action instead of easing her way back. And from a footage circulating online, the biggest takeaway was simple. She did not look tentative. That matters because rust usually shows up before confidence does. But in the clips from day one, Clark looked active, assertive, and comfortable stepping into the flow of practice. She was involved in team drills, moving the ball, getting into shots, and already appearing willing to organize possessions on the floor. For someone coming off that much time away, that is exactly the kind of early signal fans wanted. It also helps explain why the online reaction picked up so quickly. When people see Clark sharing the floor with other major names on the roster, including players like Paige Bueckers and Angel Reese, the interest is not only about individual talent. It is about possibility. Practice offers a preview of what the team could become once those pieces start reading off each other instead of just playing beside each other. And that is usually where day 2 changes the feel of camp. The first day tends to be about entry. Get everyone moving. Re-establish timing. Reintroduce structure. By the second day, the intensity usually rises. The pace gets faster. The reps get more competitive. Coaches start pushing players into game-like situations where habits show up more clearly. That means more full-court work, more 5-on-5 action, more pressure on communication, transitions, and defensive reads. Those details matter more than almost anything in a short tournament setting. Talent can win stretches. Cohesion wins possessions that feel messy, rushed, or uncomfortable. Coaches want to know who talks on defense, who reacts quickly when the action breaks down, and who stays sharp when the tempo jumps. Then there is the leadership factor, which is where Breanna Stewart's presence becomes especially valuable. Stewart joined the group for these 2 days in Miami, and that matters beyond whatever shows up in a highlight clip. On a roster that blends established stars with younger talent, experience often shows up in quieter ways. A comment between reps, a correction during a drill, the standard a veteran sets just by how seriously she approaches each sequence. For players adjusting to the national team environment, those moments can speed up the learning curve in ways fans never fully see. That is especially useful for someone like Clark, who is working her way back into top-level competition. Being around elite players does more than test her condition. It sharpens instinct. It forces quick decisions. It pulls her back into the pace and demands of real basketball. Not isolated rehab, not controlled workouts, but the actual rhythm of a team trying to prepare for meaningful games. And that brings everything back to why this camp matters in the first place. Miami is not the destination. It is the compression chamber. It is where a roster with major expectations has to speed up the process of becoming connected before boarding a flight to Puerto Rico. Every scrimmage possession teaches tendencies. Every defensive rep builds trust. Every small interaction cuts down the hesitation that can cost a team once the tournament begins. That is the real story here. Team USA is not just gathering. It is trying to form fast. And with Clark looking sharp in her return, veterans like Stewart setting the tone, and the group pushing through its final hours before competition, the energy around this team makes sense. Not because everything has already clicked, but because the pieces are starting to show how dangerous they could be once they do. What makes that even more interesting is how quickly international basketball forces clarity. There is not much patience for loose possessions or slow adjustments. The game rewards teams that recognize each other early, trust each other early, and respond under pressure without hesitation. That is why this camp is not just about getting in shape or reviewing sets. It is about compressing months of team development into a matter of days and seeing what carries over. And that is where a roster like this gets tested in a different way. Star power can create excitement before the tournament starts, but once the ball goes up, reputation stops mattering. What matters then is who can make the simple read at full speed, who rotates on time, who fills the right lane in transition, who stays composed when a possession breaks down and the original action is gone. Those are the details that separate a group of big names from a team that actually controls games. For Clark, that next step may be the most revealing part of this whole process. Looking sharp in practice is important, especially after 8 months away. But tournament basketball asks a different question. Can that rhythm hold once the pace becomes less predictable and the pressure becomes real? Can she stay aggressive while also fitting into a team structure packed with talent? That balance is where national team basketball becomes fascinating, because it is not only about what a player can create, but what she can unlock in everyone around her. That is also why the early signs from Miami feel bigger than they might seem. If Clark is already moving with confidence, already organizing possessions, already stepping into shots without hesitation, then the conversation shifts. It is no longer just about whether she is back. It becomes about how much impact she can have and how quickly she can influence the rhythm of this group. At the same time, players like Bueckers, Reese, and the rest of the roster add another layer to the story. This is not a team built around one return or one headline. It is a team with overlapping strengths, different personalities, and multiple players capable of changing the feel of a game. That creates opportunity, but it also creates a challenge. The best version of this roster will not come from everyone trying to stand out at once. It will come from understanding when to press, when to settle, and when to let the right player take over a possession. That kind of balance does not happen automatically. It has to be built through repetitions, through mistakes, through live action where timing gets tested instead of discussed. And that is why these camp sessions matter so much beneath the surface. They're not just preparing Team USA for an opener. They are revealing which combinations work, which voices lead, and which players are already seeing the floor the same way. By the time the team leaves Miami, the goal is not perfection. It is traction, enough shared rhythm to enter Puerto Rico with structure, confidence, and a clearer understanding of how this group wants to play when the games start to speed up. Because once the tournament begins, there will be no more setup period. Everything these players are building now will have to show up in real time. And that is what makes this moment so compelling. Team USA is not walking into Puerto Rico as a finished product. It is walking in as a team that had to build fast, adjust fast, and trust fast. Miami was the pressure point. The place where talent had to become timing, where names had to become roles, and where all the noise around this roster had to give way to something more difficult and more important, actual cohesion. For Caitlin Clark, this camp was about more than a return. It was a test of presence. After 8 months away, the question was never just whether she would step back on the floor. The real question was whether she could immediately look like someone who still belongs in the center of high-level competition. And from everything coming out of Miami, that answer is starting to take shape. But the bigger story is still unfolding, because this roster is not interesting just because of who is on it. It is interesting because of what it could become once the pace sharpens, the chemistry settles in, and the pressure starts exposing what is real. That is when talent stops being a headline and starts becoming an identity. Now the camp is over, the talking is over, the setup is over. What comes next is the part that tells the truth. And if this group carries the energy from Miami into tournament play, then this may be the moment where all the potential people keep talking about starts turning into something a lot more dangerous. If you want to follow every shift, every breakout, and every layer of this story as it unfolds, stay locked in with the Courtside Leaks, because this is exactly where the noise ends and the real story begins. We've got every angle covered, every leak, every backstage twist, every moment they won't show you. Hit like, subscribe, drop a comment, and share this video. Stay locked in with Courtside Leaks, your home for the truth behind the WNBA headlines.